Hey guys, Cigar Czar Joe Curio here. Welcome back to Cigar Czar Radio. Today we're going to do a little Cigar Czar 101. We're going to talk about proper techniques for cutting cigars, how to cut certain shapes of cigars, and the different styles of cutters that are out there. So to start off, when we take a look at a few of the styles of cutters that are available out in the marketplace now. All right guys, right here we have some of the different cutters that are available in the marketplace right now. The most common of all is here up here on the top row. It's your classic guillotine cutters. Everyone we have here is a double-bladed guillotine. There is also a single-bladed guillotine. I'll show you how this works. Double-bladed guillotine's actually got two blades on either side. Open up, you put the cigar in the middle, and then you would close it. You do it with one hand. On a single-bladed guillotine, you only have one blade that moves. So on a decent single-bladed guillotine, you would have a static blade here and one blade that moves. On a lot of them, you're going to have no blade on the bottom and just you're pushing one single blade towards a plastic end. The problem with that is if that one blade that moves is not sharp enough, you run the risk of crushing your cigar as opposed to cutting it. So you're going to kind of break the cap, break the binder, and the cigar can fall apart on you. I prefer the double-bladed guillotine because you kind of can get the cigar from both sides. So once the cigar is inside, one swift movement, you cut the cap right off, nice and clean. There's a couple other options out there as well. More popular now is the standard V-cut. As you guys can see here, when you open it up sideways, you can kind of see this little wedge cut they have in there. Basically all that does, instead of cutting the end of the cap off, it creates a little wedge or V-shaped cut in the cap of the cigar. It's just kind of a personal preference. I know for me, I enjoy doing this on box press cigars. To me, it's as a personal preference, it feels good. The other options are some punch cutters. Your standard punch cut keychain. It's a little bit better for on the go, golf course, that type of thing. Your standard one, you can unscrew, you have your cutting surface there, and then you have your little cap to hold it down. Some of the higher end ones are more one piece. As you can see, this guy here, this is actually a bigger punch cut. It's an 11mm punch. This is good for those of you who enjoy 60 ring gauge cigars, kind of the bigger ring gauge. You can twist this, and you can see the blade come out on this end. Basically, the way you would use a punch cutter is that you'd put the cigar right next to it, you pop this on the cap, and you twist gently and push in, and you would just pop a little circular piece off the top of the cap. So that's a few of the different styles of cutters. There's tons of them out there. There's tons of different styles. Like I said, the most popular out today are either the double guillotine, V-cut, or the punch. Many companies are making them. Me personally, I always prefer the double-bladed guillotine. So I'm gonna grab my trusty little double-bladed guillotine here, and we're going to talk about how to cut different shapes of cigars. Guys, so here you can see a couple different shapes of cigars. It's important to know different shapes of cigars as well as the construction. That way you kind of get an idea of how to cut a cigar without destroying it and ruining your smoking experience. So what we're going to do right now is go through a couple different shapes of cigars, how to cut different shapes, as well as a little bit about the construction of a cigar. So first off, let's start off with the construction, because that's kind of the most important part about this whole thing. So we're going to take a look at this cigar right here. This is your standard size, your most common size. It's called a parejo. Basically, a parejo is a round cap, which is this end of the cigar, and it's basically straight. So it's a rounded cigar, round cap, straight cigar. Now, at the end over here, if you guys can see, there we go, you can see these lines that kind of come horizontal across, well, on your screen, vertical. Here, they would normally go horizontal on the cigar. That is what we call the cap. Basically, it's a separate piece of tobacco from the rest of the wrapper that is used. They use basically a vegetable adhesive or glue, if you will, to just hold everything together. So you have your filler, your binder, your wrapper, and the cap just holds all that stuff together. So basically what you want to do is just open the cap. Remember, cigars are made with tobacco leaves. They're basically paper thin. You don't need to cut 1.5 inches off this cigar. If you can see these horizontal lines, they only go about 1/2 inch on the cigar, right here. That's the end of the cap. You don't want to ever cut past that part. In fact, you barely want to take anything off the end. So basically, when you look at the cigar, once you get to the cap, where the cap begins is what we call the shoulder of the cigar. From there on is called the cap. So we want to cut just a little bit off the end on that side. Now, there's a few different shapes of cigars as well. Now, like I said, this is called a parejo. They come in different shapes and sizes, you can see here. The one I had in my hand, this is more of like your classic 5x50 Robusto. You can have Coronas, Toros, number of shapes. It's Churchills, A sizes, any of that. The other classification in sizes is called figurados. There's a few different ones in there. Your classic Torpedo or Bellicoso. You have your figurado size, or you even have, well, something like this big Salomon here, or a Perfecto, which is kind of tapered down on both ends, as opposed to having this little bulb here. Now, when you look at these cigars, it's actually kind of hard to see the cap on this one. Basically, the way these are rolled, there's a couple different ways of rolling these pointed caps. Either one, what they do is they extend the wrapper leaf to the end. They kind of make a little flag that comes off, and they wrap it to it. Or they'll after the flag, they'll add another little cap tobacco on top of it. But with this one, you got to be a little bit careful because you don't have a designated cap. You only want to take a little bit off. So we're going to go through in a second how to cut both styles, both the Parejo and the Figurado styles. All right, guys, now it's actually time to cut our cigar. Now, I have my trusty double-bladed guillotine cutter. This is my personal favorite. Guys, don't forget, there's plenty of different cutters out there. Find one that's comfortable for you and one that you enjoy your smoking experience with. Me personally, I enjoy my double guillotine. So open this up. We have with me my standard Parejo size cigars. This is anything, any Robusto, Corona, Toro, Churchill. There's a number of cigars out there. Basically, it's just a straight line cigar with a rounded cap. What we're gonna do right now is we're gonna look for the shoulder of the cigar. So you're gonna look for where the cap begins. This is where we call the shoulder, and you never wanna cut below that. In fact, you never wanna get close to that. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna put the cigar in our cutter. I'm gonna get it about 1/8 of the way in, so as you can see, I'm not gonna be taking very much off the cigar at all. Now, over our ashtray, in one nice quick motion, I'm just gonna cut it right off. You can see, I barely took anything off the end of that cigar. In fact, that is how much I took off the cap. Very small, I only took about 1/8 of an inch off, and that's plenty to open it up. Now I like to just kind of brush it off a little bit, kind of like, you know, cutting wood, get a little sawdust in the cut. You're always gonna have a little bit of tobacco in there, so I just kind of brush it off a little bit, and you're ready to smoke. Size this right now, we're gonna go into cutting a Figurado. Don't forget, Figurados include torpedoes, as we have here, your regular Figurado size, Salomons, Perfectos, anything that ends up having a pointed end that you need to cut. Now, if you remember from earlier, there's a couple different ways to cap a Perfecto, Figurado, Perfecto, or torpedo. You make they usually will make a little, what they call the flag, wrap around a little bit, and occasionally they'll put a second piece of tobacco over to hold it. But considering there's not much of a true cap, you gotta be careful when you're gonna cut the end of this. So basically what I tell guys to do is to take your cutter, again, here's my trusty double-bladed guillotine, you're gonna stick the cigar into the cutter about 1/4 of an inch. You don't wanna go too much. Same just like the Parejo, nice quick chop. And there you have it. Your cigar is nice and open. Now, as you can see, only took off about 1/4 of an inch or so. Now, the nice thing by only taking off about 1/4 of an inch on any Figurado or torpedo is you get to try the cold draw. So you get to taste a little bit. If it's still too tight of a draw because it is a much smaller opening than a standard Parejo, you can always take off a little bit more. So if you need to open it up, I would put another 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch in, cover it off. It's gonna open up your draw a little bit more. Now, I've been able to speak to a lot of beginners about cutting cigars and how to light a cigar properly. I've come up with a little technique. It's my way to help beginners just kind of get used to cutting a cigar and how much of a cigar to cut. Is it something that I would recommend you seasoned cigar smokers to do? No, but to me, this has been the easiest way for me to teach a beginner how to enjoy a cigar experience without ruining the cut on this cigar. So basically what I tell them to do is take your double-bladed guillotine, open it up, put it flat on your counter. And we have our standard Parejo here. Again, straight line cigar, rounded cap. All you're gonna do, take the cap, put it upside down the opening of your cutter, and cut it right against whatever surface you're on. As you can see, you don't take that much off. A little bit more than that 1/8 of an inch I took off from cutting it by my hand, but I'm used to doing that. But as you can see there, we definitely didn't take too much off that as well. So while that might not be a seasoned cigar smoker's normal permanent method of doing it, it definitely will work for those beginners out there who just aren't used to how much of a cigar to cut off. So this will help you not cut off too much and have your cigar unravel on you. Now you can also do this on a Figurado size cigar. Again, Figurados, they come in Perfectos, Figurados, torpedoes, anything that's gonna have this pointed end on the cap. Now, it's a little bit more difficult to do it on this, but it is possible. Again, not the recommended way of doing it, but for you beginners out there, it's going to help you get used to cutting a cigar and how much of a cigar to cut off. So again, open up your cutter, make sure it's flat on your surface. You're going to take your pointed cap, put it upside down in there, and close it. Now, as you probably noticed, I don't even know if the camera's going to be able to get this, we really didn't get that 1/4 of an inch that we recommend earlier. You can see it there. The thing with this, I tell guys, do it twice. So any torpedoes, figurados, perfectos, there we go. Gets it nice and open. All right, and again, just like before, if you find the draw on your figurado too tight, you can always cut more off. It's always better to cut a little bit less than cut too much. All right, guys, so that's it for little Cigar Czar 101 on how to cut your cigar. I hope that helps you guys, especially you beginners out there who weren't sure how much of the cigar to cut off. So I'm going to sit there, enjoy my nice cigar. Don't forget, keep checking out me and the Commodore Mikey Bits online at cigarzarradio.com and on social media at Cigar Czar Radio, and subscribe to our YouTube channel at Cigar Czar Radio.